Welcome back, everyone, to the Bitcoin Business Bureau. I'm your host, as always, LitecoinLeader. Today, I want to talk about a very difficult subject and one of the hardest things to predict, which is timing. Now, timing is probably, it is the hardest thing to predict. We say it all the time. I say it all the time. People ask, like, is Bitcoin going to go up? And I say, eventually, yes. Is the fiat system, is the dollar system going to crumble? Eventually, yes. The question is timing. When is this going to happen? Now, I had this, I don't want to call it an epiphany, but I had this it came to me the other day that the big picture really hasn't changed. So there's a milestone out there, and I'm going to place it in February 1st, 2025. By that time, which is roughly 22 months from now, less than 2 years, by that time, the leadership in DC is going to be radically different. And I think because of that, the things that have to happen between now and then are going to be different from that milestone forward. So let me say it a different way. So certain things need to happen and transpire between now and that milestone in February 2025. The resident of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, sorry, I have to be cryptic. You understand why, but the resident now needs to be different than number 45 because things are going to come down and come down hard. We don't know when, but the fiat system is going to crumble. The banks are starting to fail. The economy is going to get worse. Bad things are going to happen. And the way that, think about when you build a new high rise in a major city. To do that, you have to more than likely implode what was there first. So you need to destroy in order to build anew. So we are in the destruction phase of how things need to move forward for the next 22 months. So that's why it's going to be difficult, because we've gotten used to convenience, and that's the nature of humans. Like, they try the powers that be and made the things that they want to implement very easy to do. Like, it's very easy to send money between banks using Zelle, for example. So, they even have commercials about, like, I'd rather have money in my bank versus cash because it's easier to move around and so on. Not necessarily true, but that's how they depict it. So they make it easy to open a bank account, relatively speaking, but they make it hard to maintain with the fees and so on. Direct deposit becomes easy. It's easy to put money into the bank. It's hard to remove it. And anyone who's tried to do a wire or take a substantial amount of cash out of the bank in recent months know exactly what I'm talking about. I've heard story after story of this happening. It's very difficult to get cash out of the banks. They don't want you to do it. And they also keep lowering your amounts. They lower your ATM ability. They lower how much you can withdraw each day. They lower your credit lines. They do everything they can to limit your ability to take out new currency from the bank, because they want to keep it in the bank. Because once you deposit cash or currency into the bank, if you read the fine print, and this is finally coming to light, I've done lots of talking about the bail-ins. We talked about with Jack from Nobody Special Finance on EconomicPreppers. Once they get to the bail-in, people are learning what a bail-in is versus a bailout. And a bail-in comes from the Dodd-Frank Act of 2010, where banks have to have this plan. If they go bankrupt, how are they going to pay their creditors? And they take all those deposits and convert them into paying off their creditors, and give people that still have allegedly deposits in an account with that bank, they give them stock instead, equity in a bank that's now bankrupt. So why would you want that? It's basically worthless. So that's why it's very risky to keep too much of your currency in a bank. So back to the timeline, okay? Lots of destruction needs to happen between now and 2025. The powers that be that are presently in office need to be the ones that are suffering through this and have to deal with all these problems and issues, as opposed to the people that will be running to be in charge in 2025 and beyond. For that timeline, that's the Reconstruction Phase. I'm going to call it Reconstruction 2.0, because the original Reconstruction Phase was after the Civil War, and that was in the 1870s to roughly 1900. It was a very deflationary time in our nation, and we actually were very prosperous. And deflationary is not necessarily a bad thing. It's actually a good thing. That's what we should be striving for. If you think about it, think about big screen TVs or computers or anything electronic. the prices eventually come down because the new widget, the latest and greatest thing that comes out of Consumer Electronics Show, all the great, like the biggest TVs, the best computers, the best iPhones, they're expensive. But eventually there's more and more created, which creates demand for that, the parts that go in it. And then the prices start to come down. That's the way it should work, because in any industry, as you're making more of things, you become more efficient. You get more supply of goods and materials to make those items. You get better in your processes, and the price of the cost of manufacturing that good goes down. So if let's just say something costs, let's just say a phone costs $1,000, right? A phone costs $1,000, brand new, top of the line, iPhone 27, whatever it is. It's $1,000 off the line, brand new. A year later, it could be $800 but if it's $800, the cost of, let's say that $1,000 phone costs $200 to make. So they have an 80% margin on that $1,000 phone. Well, if that phone now costs $100 to make a year later, you can actually charge $925 for it. You're actually making more profit and a better percentage return on that investment than you did originally selling it for $1,000. So prices come down because your manufacturing efficiencies get better. And that's what happened back in the 1870s to the 1900s. And we were in a deflationary environment, not just in the US, but also in the UK and other places too. And at the same time, there was more and more gold that was being discovered. And economists thought it was going to be inflationary to have all this new money discovered and injected into the marketplace. Well, that was outweighed by the efficiencies of the market and industrial revolution to drop the cost of manufacturing so much that wages stayed the same, but your buying power went up because the price of things that you wanted to buy were going down. So that could be what's happening come 2025 beyond, as we build a new economy that's not based on this legacy financial system where you have a debt and credit and all these other things that we don't necessarily need. And all this interest is killing everyone because you're stealing from your own future and your labor, and you have to work harder in the future to pay for what you want to have now. So lots of things have to happen. We are in so the timeline, while it's hard to predict what's going to happen next week, next month, or so on, the big picture, that milestone in 2025, I'm going to call it February 1st for ease of getting it through this channel and getting it through YouTube. But we have about less than 2 years. Okay. In less than 2 years, I can expect that the dollar could be dead or nearing its death. The legacy financial systems, same thing. The banks could be all gone by then, or most of them. It's going to be very difficult for a lot of people because it's a lot of change. And it's going to be a world that no one alive has ever experienced. But it's happened in the past. And it happened in the Weimar Republic in the 20s and 30s in Germany. But the biggest, I think the best thing to look at is that period from 1870 to 1900 in the United States, where we had great manufacturing. We had great factories that we originally used for the Civil War effort in the 1860s, but then they were repurposed to make things more efficient. And we used that new labor supply of everybody coming back from the war and people that were learning those machines. And the country just boomed for the next 20, 30 years. And that's a position we could very well be in 2025 and beyond. But in order to build up anew, you have to tear down. So that's the kind of big picture timeline I'm giving. I think that obviously Bitcoin, in that timeline, crypto is going to go up because Bitcoin will have a halving in 2024. And I think it's summertime of 2024. So as those financial instruments start to get less and less powerful and prevalent, crypto and silver and gold and precious metals are all going to go up as people rediscover the value of these things, both gold and silver for certain as true money in the digital forms of Bitcoin and Litecoin, where Bitcoin is digital gold, Litecoin is digital silver. Yes, there are concerns about either one, right? There's concerns about gold, silver, Litecoin, Bitcoin. Yes, there are pros and cons to all four of those, but having exposure to all four, not financial advice, but it does afford you options outside of the cash financial system and ATMs and banks that are having a lot of problems right now that you may want to limit your exposure to, not financial advice once again. So lots said today. I look forward to reading all your comments. I should have said it earlier, but please like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. With all that said, I'm going to close the door on the bureau, say follow leader, and I will talk to you soon. Take care.